All right. Sometimes it delays when it records, so I just wait a few seconds. I was paying attention. I promise. Hey, Patrick Kelley, distinguished architect. Today's topic, if you haven't guessed by my Prezi video presentation, is Zoom's roadmap and strategy. What are they? What is it? How do you talk about it? You as an AE or SE or CSM or TAM or whatever role you're playing here at Zoom, you need to tell a story. You might be a salesperson, but your job is really to educate and tell a story. And what is the Zoom roadmap and strategy story? What is your job? How do you educate your end users, your customers, your vendors, your partners, your colleagues on the Zoom roadmap and strategy story? It's a good one. You should know it. But the point of the strategy story is that there's three stories that you need to be able to tell when you're having this Zoom vision, strategy, roadmap discussion with customers. One is 99.86% of all customers are Microsoft customers. 99.86%. First of all, I just made that number up. I have no idea what the number is. That just came off the top of my head. I'm sure it's not accurate, but it can't be that far off. Let's be real honest. Is that rarely do I walk into a customer and they're like, "Oh, by the way, we're all Google and Linux Red Hat." Like that. I'm sure it happens somewhere. It doesn't happen to me. I can tell you that right now. And I talk to a lot of customers throughout my days here at Zoom. So I'm going to stick by the 99.86%. Sound about right? Well, good. It should be. And that's where we walk into enterprises or SMB or majors or PubSec or education, government. It doesn't matter. There's probably a Microsoft customer somewhere in the mix, right? And that's why we need to have three stories ready to rock and roll at any given time. You don't know when you're going to walk into an elevator with a CIO or CTO. You don't know when you're going to be sitting in an airplane by a CEO. And you're going to be able to tell this story, if not all three of them. What are the three stories that you're going to need in your back pocket? You're going to need three. What's the first one? When you're talking to a Microsoft customer, the first story you're going to need to tell, the very first story you're going to need to tell is one, why Zoom and why not Zoom, right? And then how are Teams and Zoom coexisting together? I hate to use this next word, but how are Teams and Zoom integrating together? I don't use that term very often, and there's a reason why. If you haven't heard me tell this Teams and Zoom story, you need to watch that video, or you need to watch me in a meeting. It's a really good story, and you need to be able to tell it. You need to tell why Teams and Zoom can coexist in the same Microsoft architecture. Mike, why does Zoom and Microsoft coexist, or Teams coexist in a Microsoft solution? There's about 10 different workflows, use cases, business value adds that you need to know when you're talking to a Microsoft customer. Why Zoom is needed in addition to Teams. Not to replace Teams per se. We can certainly do that. But think about the landscape there. And I won't dive too deep into the first story, but just to give you a point. If your users, if your customers, your partners, your vendors, your colleagues aren't really using Teams, but if all your customers are using Teams, how are you going to leverage Zoom inside of that landscape? How are you going to position Zoom to be a value add in addition to Teams? That's the story. That's the first story you're going to need to tell. The second story you're going to need to tell is Microsoft's a gigantic company. They're a $2 trillion company for a reason. It's because they own a lot more than just Teams, right? Microsoft is Azure to Xbox and everything in between. Gaming, hardware, software, solutions in the cloud, Azure, identity, productivity, file repository, security, compliance. You get the point. Microsoft has hundreds, if not thousands of solutions and applications that they can sell to a customer We only care about one when we're competing with Microsoft. Because guess what? We sit in the UCaaS space completely. That's all we do. 100%. We sit in UCaaS, and that's it. So don't worry about identity. Don't worry about security from an outside of UCaaS perspective. Don't worry about e-discovery and compliance and DLP and Azure and cloud computing and IoT and OS. Why don't we care about that stuff? Because we're not in that business. So don't compete with that stuff. You don't compete. Utilize it. The point is that Zoom integrates in a lot more ways than just Teams. So you need to be able to tell the story of how Zoom integrates on multiple levels inside the Microsoft platform and the Microsoft architecture. From Azure, right? Identity, authentication, SSO, Outlook, Outlook Mobile, Direct Guest Join, OneDrive, SharePoint, Dynamics. I think you're getting the point. Is all those things are non-team stuff. And you better be able to tell the story of how Zoom integrates into each and every one of those. Because you're a Microsoft shop, remember, you're at Zoom. You are adding value to their solution, whatever it might be, Google or Microsoft. We're just talking about Microsoft right now. So you better be able to tell story one, Teams and Zoom coexistence story. Two, Microsoft integration points beyond just Teams. And then once you've told those two stories, then you can dive into the roadmap and strategy story of Zoom. If you didn't already know, since you work here, Zoom is a UCaaS player. We play in the UCaaS space. That's all we do for now, right? Who knows what the vision is beyond maybe a year or two. We are a complete UCaaS solution. What does complete UCaaS solution mean to me? It's like digital transformation. It's like hybrid work, right? It can mean anything you want it to mean. But here's what it means to me, and hopefully it means something to you, and this can resonate a little bit. We are a complete UCaaS stack. We are a platform. We are an ecosystem. We are not a niche provider. What's the difference? What's the difference? Take, for example, Fuse. Fuse is a niche provider. They're a calling solution. Take, for example, 8x8. They're a calling solution. RingCentral expands that a little bit. They're a calling solution, direct routing, and meetings. WebEx, same thing. They're a UCaaS player, almost a complete stack, right? These are niche players. Productivity are platform players. Microsoft's, Google's, the Zooms of the world. We are more than just meetings. We are more than just calling. We have the complete UCaaS stack because we go into audio, video, calling, rooms, phone, digital signage, events, virtual events, video endpoint communication, hardware management. All this stuff is a complete UCaaS stack. This is where we sit 100% of the time. This is where we concentrate all our efforts. Dev, solutions engineering, sales, innovation, dynamic functions. You get the point. We're a complete UCaaS stack. Throw in call center. Throw in everything else we're going to do in the next 3, 6, 9, 10, 12 months. We're a complete UCaaS stack. And how do we utilize that to parlay this message into furthering our footprint and our stronghold to grow virally within an enterprise? Point 2, everyone has different needs. Every user has different needs. I was just playing with my spotlight. Every user has a different persona. Every user needs a different tool sometimes. What do I mean by that? I mean, I always do 3 examples. Susie in HR, Bob in accounting, Steve in sales. 3 different people, 3 different organizations, 3 different departments, 3 different jobs. They probably have 3 different needs for tools. We don't live in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s anymore. And I say that because I grew up in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, as you can tell by my gray hair. No longer do we live in the draconian IT era of of 80s and 90s and early 2000s, where the IT department would come in and say, hey, here's your solution for the next 3 to 5 years. You get one choice, hate it or love it. We don't care. You're going to use it. That's not how we do it in 2022. Gartner says that 70% of our workforce is millennials and younger. What does that mean to gray-haired people like me? It means that the millennials and younger grew up differently than we did, than I did. Millennials and younger, 70% of the workforce grew up with iPhones in their hand, iPads in their hands, Android phones, mobile devices, laptops, desktops, fully accessible all the time, school, consumer, enterprise. They have different needs, different workflows. Users use tools differently. That's the point. That's the point, is you're going to need to give users the tools that they require to do their job. And it's no longer just one, probably. No longer is draconian IT of the 80s, 90s, early 2000s pushing a tool down and says, hey, use this tool for the next 3 to 5 years, whether you like it or not. That probably does still happen. The point is CIOs today, CTOs today, IT directors, business decision makers now are using and seeing the need to give tools, best in breed tools, to their users to let them do their job. Because I just talked about Susie in HR works differently than Bob in accounting, works differently than Steve in sales. They have different workflows. They have different needs. They need different tools. And Zoom completes that with a complete UCaaS stack. I'm fully aware that Teams is eminently throughout every enterprise almost in the world. I get that. The point is, we don't live in utopia, though. Utopia for a CIO, a CTO, an IT director, a business decision maker would be, hey, let's buy one tool that does everything perfectly. Let's buy one tool. Let's support one tool. Let's admin one tool. Let's operate one tool. Let's train on one tool. And that one tool meets every single need and every single workflow of every single person. That's not the world we live in yet. Can Zoom do it? Pretty close, closer than anybody else. There may be a gap or two in some of maybe the collaboration side, where maybe Teams and Slack are maybe a little bit ahead of us in this regard. We're catching up here, right? We're putting a ton of effort into chat, collaboration, whiteboarding, all those asynchronous collaboration tools. And you better be able to tell that story too. Unified collaboration as a service is collaborating. Unified communication as a service is communicating. Those are two different things. And sometimes you need two different tools to do them perfectly. And today, that might be Teams for collaboration. Teams does a pretty good job for collaboration. It might be Zoom for communication. And that's okay to join them together to have a complete UCaaS stack if you didn't choose Zoom the first time. Zoom sees this different needs, this different workflows, and identifies those gaps and closes them. That's how Zoom cares. That's how Zoom positions itself to be the forefront of a UCaaS provider. We can do everything. Maybe not quite perfectly yet, but we're sure as heck working on it. Right? So you better be able to tell what a complete UCaaS stack solution means to Zoom. You better be able to identify to your users, your customers, that there are different needs and different requirements and different workflows for Susie in HR, Bob in accounting, Steve in sales. I dive deeper into these two things when I give examples of story one, Teams and Zoom coexistence. If you haven't heard that story, please listen to it. If you haven't figured out the job of a CIO today, a CTO today, an IT decision maker, is to give choice. Different workflows, different needs require different choices. I'll give you an example. Users want choice. Users demand choice. And if the draconian IT doesn't give it to them, they're going to go out and get it themselves. And now we have shadow IT in the enterprise. And now you don't control those applications. You don't control security. You don't control compliance because you don't know it's even out there. Users went and got the tool that they wanted to do their job the best, the most effective and collaborative as possible. That's probably going to be Zoom. Whether you have Teams or not, it's probably going to be Zoom. Users demand choice, and choice is okay. Remember, Susie in HR might have a lot of collaborating needs internally. She might use Teams internally more than Steve in sales, who has a lot of external calls. And this is where we split UCaaS even more. Collaboration, communication, we talked about that just now. Well, what about external versus internal? And I reuse the word external, and I say it this way. Internal communication and collaboration, certainly required for any enterprise. How much revenue does internal collaboration generate for a company? Susie in HR calling Bob in accounting generates probably zero revenue. Probably costs you money. You're paying them a salary. Needs to get done. That work is dearly needed to have an enterprise run effectively and efficiently. But that's not generating revenue for your company. You know what's generating revenue? Steve in sales. Steve in sales is making these external calls, external meetings. Reword that. Revenue generating communication. That's choice. That's what Zoom's vision is. We want to be that internal collaboration tool, but also that external revenue generating tool. Two different forms of communication and collaboration. Internal, external. This one makes you money. Revenue generating communication makes you money. And guess what tool is the best for that? You got it, Zoom. So when we see choice, we actually see Steve in sales using Teams for internal collaboration. We see Steve in sales choosing Zoom for revenue generating communication. That's choice. Your job is not to limit it. Your job is to give it. As an IT director, CIO, CTO, your job, your IT department's job is to provide choice, clarity, support, adoption, training, and tools to your end users. By the way, to a CTO, a CIO, an IT director, who are the end users? That's their customers. That's their customers. They have to make their customers happy just like we have to make our customers happy. That's their job. How does Zoom do that? 3 different ways. First of all, the development platform for Zoom is amazing. The developer platform for Zoom is amazing. We got Zoom apps. We have Zoom Marketplace. We have open APIs and SDKs. Why is this important to you? It might not be important to you, but it's certainly important to your customers. They want to develop alongside their UCaaS application of choice. And how do you do that? With open APIs, open SDKs. Zoom is agnostic when it comes to this. We open up these APIs and SDKs for our partners alone. You go to the marketplace today, I think there's close to 2,000 different apps that you can download and plug into Zoom or use in the Zoom apps portfolio. No other customer can say that, not even close. Zoom apps obviously are in-app marketplace as well as alongside marketplace. We have apps like Prezi I'm using right now. That plugs into Zoom. We have DocuSign. That's an in-meeting app. We have open APIs and SDKs. And Zoom's great about this because we don't care if you write code into our platform or you write our platform into your code. We don't care. Microsoft cannot say that. Microsoft does not do that. A differentiator. Second differentiator, virtual events. The ability, obviously, to have some sort of multi-day event from a single application. Think about this. Are we going to Vegas anytime soon for 5 days in a row and going to conferencing rooms all day and then partying all night and then grabbing a coffee and start it all over again? Maybe we'll get there. We're not there today and probably will never be the way we were before the pandemic. But that doesn't mean the need for conferences goes away. It's certainly a vital part of an enterprise solution to train their users and their workforce. Virtual events are a requirement in today's world. From a remote perspective, we can't all attend every single virtual event. This is why we have it. We can't attend every single event. We can attend it virtually. Zoomtopia is a perfect example. On Zoom and Zoom events, changing the way we're doing virtual events. And Microsoft doesn't have this. Will they? Probably at some point, but they don't today. And that's part of our vision. That's part of the wheel at Zoom is developer platform, virtual events, and then finally customer experience. We added this recently because this completed our UCaaS stack. Call center, video call centers, the ability to extend calling, to extend communication, to extend workflow. Again, all within a single application and a single experience. These are differentiators in the Zoom world over the Microsofts of the world. Make sure you can tell the story. Flexible work, I like this term more so than hybrid work. Flexible work, hybrid work does not mean the same as working from home. We've been working from home for years. Way before the pandemic, people worked from home or from the road. That's not what I'm talking about. Flexible work or hybrid work is the extension of choice for an end user. I now have the ability with the tools of Zoom to work from home, work remotely, work in the office, all with the same level of virtual real estate, the same level of digital footprints, the same level of democratization. So it doesn't matter from you as a presenter or an attendee where I choose to work because I'm being flexible. I want to work in an airport. I want to work at Starbucks. I want to work at home. I want to work at the office. I can use the same tool for all of those, which leads into continuous collaboration. We are not a 9-to-5 world. We don't work 9 to 5 Eastern Standard Time and everybody in the world works 9 to 5. We're in a synchronous world. An asynchronous world works differently, works on different time zones, works in different countries, works continuously though. And think about that. No longer are we meeting and that's all the work we do for an hour and then we wait a week and we meet again for another hour. No, we don't work that way. Virtually, we can still work real time like we're doing right now. But asynchronously, we still need to collaborate. And we've extended that into Zoom Chat and Zoom Whiteboard. No longer do I have to be in a chat room at the same time as everybody else and work on documents at the same time as everybody else. Zoom allows for continuous collaboration. We extend that to Whiteboard, and we extend that to meeting lifecycle. There's a meeting lifecycle. There's a before meeting, there's a during meeting, and then there's an after meeting. That's continuous collaboration. That's the ability to continue to work regardless if you have a meeting or not. I might be up at midnight because my dog might be sick or my baby might be crying and I can't get to sleep, so I want to work on a document. Steven Sales might be sleeping like he's supposed to be, and it doesn't work on the document until 8 o'clock in the morning. The point is, we have continuous collaboration on our projects because we have Zoom Chat, Zoom Whiteboard, and extending that Zoom Chat and Zoom Whiteboard into Box and SharePoint and Zoom Cloud, which then leads to hybrid events as well. Hybrid events obviously is the continuation of our customer experience, and Zoom events, we have this ability to have hybrid events. So Zoom events on Zoom, you could have virtual, you could have in-person, multi-day events with continuous collaboration, with flexible work, with choice, which leads to the final thing in our roadmap and strategy is all of this complete UCaaS stack is one application, one experience. I don't need multiple tools to do multiple jobs, to do multiple workflows for multiple user personas. Zoom meets that demand with one application, with one experience, whether it's mobile, conferencing room, desktop, laptop, it doesn't matter. In the office, out of the office, remote. One application, one experience. And look for Zoom to expand on this as the months and years to come, as our vision and roadmap strategy are still focused 100% on UCaaS. Thank you.